Hi, hello, welcome to Hear Her Hand. So today we're going to do a little bit of a different podcast, and we're going to do my review of every garment I've ever knit, and I am calling this my Everything I've Knit, Wins, Woes, and What I Would Do Differently. So, if you're interested in hearing all about the projects I've done, everything I've learned over the last year and a half of knitting garments, I will sharing those things. I have a pretty long, oh no, I missed one. I have a pretty long list of sweaters I have knit. So, we start off with the first sweater I ever knit when I find it. Hold on. Hi, hello, my name is Jennifer, and I am Hear Her Hand. So, I am a knitter, crocheter, sewist, and quilter located in Baltimore, Maryland, with my partner and 2 miniature schnauzers and 2 black cats. And today we're going to do a little bit of a different, not exactly podcast, it's some more of a review. So here we're going to review everything I've ever knit, wins, woes, and what I would do differently. And we're going to start out with the first thing I ever knit, which was the cardigan. I'll put a picture up here. You can see better what this looks like. So, the first cardigan I ever knit was called the Shapely Boyfriend, and it was a really simple stockinette V-neck cardigan with 2x2 rib. The pattern is a free pattern on Lavalee by Stephanie Japel, and I knit it in Lion Brand, Wee Tweed in the color Dutch Blue, which I have other things in Lion Brand. This one is slightly itchy, and I don't know if it's the acrylic or the tweed or what exactly, but it's a little itchy. Although it was a really good fiber for my first attempt at knitting a garment. And I don't know if you can see, it's definitely worn. Like, there's some piece of tilling. Some of that is like tweed, but a lot of that is just wear. So this sweater has been well worn and well loved. I knit this in before we moved, so 2023 that I knit this. I initially had bought a kit off of Lion Brand, which was the retweed and the October sweater, and I started knitting that top-down sweater, and I just didn't like how it looked. It wasn't my style, so I went and looked for something that was more my style, but still simple. And my style tends to be like a very simple stockinette cardigan. But you can definitely see, like I'll put in like more close-up pictures, but you can see, looking at this, like how far my abilities have come. So like first bit of this is like the top part. It looks like I was twisting my knit stitches, so these are like kind of these zigzaggy stitches, and like they're very obvious, especially once you like start knitting in the round. But that was something I had to learn, right? That was something I literally didn't know. And like there's some holes under the arms. My pickup wasn't great. But literally the only real issue I have with this is the acrylic yarn is sometimes itchy. But in spite of that, it's nice and warm. It's kind of a worsted weight acrylic yarn. It's in one of my favorite colors, and just very wearable. I literally wore this all the time last year, especially while I was learning to knit, and I made, as you will hear, a bunch of missteps in my new baby knitting hobby journey. So this was the first thing I knit. I took this pattern, which was not actually that shapely for me, and I added increases, like kind of hip increases. So like once I got past the waist, I increased a little bit and made it a slightly more A-line up the bottom. So here there are some increases. I marked them on both sides, so there are increases on both sides of the like underarm section, and I knit a medium, so it is quite a bit more oversized than really is my personal fit, but it's very cozy. And I really love this sweater. Like, honestly, I would probably reknit it exactly as is in a more of a like wool and serge, like this one. One day when I get to that, there's so many things I want to knit. Like, one literally cannot knit everything they want to knit. So that was my first ever garment pattern, and it was very successful. And it is, if I were the type of person who tracked my wearing of my knits, it probably is the most boring thing I've ever knitted. Just very much my style. So my second knit was, I knit the Zephyr sweater by Julia Piro, and so I knit that sweater sort of right before and right after I was hospitalized last year. I knit it in Knit Picks Cotton in the Clow and Planetarium, which was like a very bright teal and a almost navy teal dark color. And I originally knit the size, what size I knit? I knit an extra small. But when I was working on it before I got to the hospital, I was knitting on a US 8. No. Yes. So I was knitting on a US 8 or 6mm needle, and it was very drapey and very like cozy, comfy, slouchy, but it didn't look like the original pattern by the designer, and so I was confused. And after I got I literally knit a whole sleeve and half of the body, and then I was talking to one of my 2 groups of knitting friends, and they were helping me look at it and realized that I was knitting on the wrong needle size. So I had swatched for it and was supposed to be knitting it on a US 6 for a 4mm needle, and I believe, as is typical for me, the actual original needle size was half size smaller than that, so it was like a 30.5mm. And it just looked different, but it was so comfortable. So I frogged it, the whole thing, and I started over. And I knit the sweater again. So I knit like a sweater and a half. And when I finished it, it looked beautiful. It was very comfy. I knit the striped version, with like a section of teal, and then I did the striping. And on the bottom, I switched into the darker blue on the bottom. So it was very stylized. And it was pretty, but it was just not really a fit or a style that I like. And I tend to not be a huge sweater wearer. I'm not sure why. So after having that around for a couple months and not wearing it at all, I frogged it. And then I took that yarn and I washed it, and I cleaned it back up, and I knit Tolsta tank by Rebecca Clow, which had come out. So I knit that one. Again, I used the knit picks Kylen and the Forrester, and I knit the vest style, and I added a crochet lace edging along the neckline and the sleeves, and it was really pretty. And it fit perfectly. It fit exactly as intended, and I knit in a half needle size up from the pattern recommendation. So it was really pretty. It was a size 2, and it looked like this, and it just was not, I just really I like my clothes to not be super fitted, and so it wasn't something I was going to wear, even though it was absolutely perfect. So I frogged that as well. I had knit a size 2 on a US 9. And then next was another test knit. So I jumped in on test knits all 2 feet of me, both feet, into test knitting. And so my next test knit was for Lillian Olson. I test knitted the Beachside cardigan, which I knit the cardigan size 2 in Patton's Classic worsted in the culture you've heard about, because I talked about it on my podcast before. So I knit the Beachside cardigan. I knit the lace style. She had 2 options for this. There was a lace one and a stockinette. I knit the lace, and I knit the balloon sleeves because the lace pattern was just complicated enough. I was not very confident in my ability to crease under the arms with the lace patterning and make it look right. And so that was my mistake. So I knit that with the balloon sleeves, and I knit it 2 pattern, and for some reason the balloon sleeves were like the sleeve before you started the cuff were as long as me. This was down to my thumb, and then I added the cuff, and then they were covering my hand, so I pushed them up to this balloon sleeve, and it just looked huge. And also my other mistake with that was when I just was pulling too tight when I picked up and knit the 2x2 ribbing for the button band, and it was pulling up on the bottom of the cardigan, so it's kind of curved, and that was very much a problem. So I frogged the button band and reknit it and sewed it on so that I could be absolutely certain that it was not pulling, and it looked right. It was very nice when it was done. It was very comfortable. It was just not really my style either. The hair too girly. I am more of a classic preppy style, so it's too far into the feminine girly style for me to feel comfortable wearing. So once again, I frogged that. So that was a different yarn. I frogged the Patton's Classic wool worsted. See that fast. And I washed it and steamed it up, and so it's all nice and flat again. I put that away, and I was one day I will find the right cardigan style for this yarn. And then I did another test knit. So I'm on Yarn Pond, and it's because originally I joined Yarn Pond because I was having a hard time getting accepted to the big 25 million designers test knits. And so I test knit this sweater, which was called the Stubblefield sweater. I don't even ever come out. So I test knit this one by Kylen Tennies. I knit it in lime brand Kobu in the color Admiral, which is a steely navy, and it was kind of a different stitch patterns that included a waffle stitch, which was why I had decided to do that test knit. So I knit that in a size 2 on a US 8 or 5 millimeter, and that's 5 balls of Kobu. And then when I finished it and blocked it and tried it on, it still was like very typical, exactly at my waist, but it was so bulky that length just looked very weird to me, and so I wanted to knit it a little bit longer. And when I tried to pull to frog the hem of the Kobu, it would not frog. I ended up with like literal knots instead of pulled out frog gear. So I couldn't frog it. I tried and tried and tried, and I got so frustrated that I balled it up and threw it in a corner. And I do think eventually, earlier this year, when I was sorting through my sweaters, I might have actually literally thrown it out because I was so frustrated with the Kobu. Which is sad because the Kobu is actually a really nice, soft, comfortable yarn to wear if it's knit in the right pattern. Easier to knit if you knit it on a wooden needle than if you knit it on, especially a really like clunky metal needle. I would not do that with wood. It's much easier. But that just did not work out, and so I ended up getting rid of it. And I do not know what happened with that pattern because it's literally not on Ravelry. I don't think it's come out. The next I did another pattern test knit for Sarah's Handmakes, which was the Mountains and Sea sweater, which is this. So this is the Mountains and Sea sweater, and it is super fun and cozy. So I knit this in my interpretation of Mountains and Seas, which is this really fun thrifted mohair in like a goldenrod, aspen yellow, and like a sort of tealy blue for rivers, and like a larkspur columbine purple for the mountains. So that was like a multicolored mohair, and I held it double with Pattern's Grace, which is a cotton yarn, and that is in this color navy. So this sweater is actually perfect aside from the yarn. So my mistake was not knowing, right? So I've never knit mohair. First time I ever did it with mohair, and it's gorgeous, and I love it, and I think it's so itchy. I cannot wear it. So that's my discovery of I can't use or wear mohair. But I think this lovely sweater would be a wonderful gift for someone who can tolerate mohair. However, that being said, I knit the Mountains and Sea sweater in the extra small on a US 7 or 4.5 millimeter needle. So 2 small changes I made to this pattern for my comfort was I added about 10 inches on the body because it's Sarah personally prefer more of a crop look. And I added 1 inch on the sleeves because the sleeves were feeling shorter than I wanted. I like my sleeves to come down and cover my hands like this, right? So I added a little bit of length, and the pattern has the split hem. It has the 2x2 rib on the body hem and the neckline and the sleeves. And it took me about a month and a half to knit, all told. But it was a really fun, beautiful knit. And I just, unfortunately, I can't wear it. So the next sweater that I knit that I would say is sort of like in betweenish of a not quite a winner, not quite a well. I knit the Salty Days sweater by Veronika Lindberg. So that sweater was part of a knit along with Haley Space and Morgan Unraveled. I knit that one in Lion Brand Superwash Merino in the color Quail on a US 10 or a 6mm needle in the size small, which is the size that Veronika shows in her like pattern example photos. So unfortunately for this poor sweater, so the sweater was very fun. I will say, like, different stitch patterns are really fun. I needed some minor help, which I found by looking at Lady Natty's pattern, where she had done the bottom row of diamonds. That was where I had issues. But her notes were top notch. Very helpful. So if you have an issue, definitely go look at her project on Ravelry. That being said, I knit this in Lion Brand's Superwash Merino, and I was working on the sleeves when I was traveling in Houston for my mother-in-law's memorial over the first of this year. So I haven't worn it. I have some sort of weird feelings about it, but also I have some sort of issues with how it looks. So this is my, yeah, I mean, it's really pretty. This is my sweater, Salty Day sweater. It is very pretty, it's very stretchy. So the two small things for probably won't even be able to see this, but there's a line here. So when I knit the cuffs, I did the tubular sewn bind off, and then even after I blocked it, they still felt a little short. So I went back and I added an inch and a half, I think, to the cuff. Problem with that is that I can see this line right here where I picked up and added more cuff length, and it's on both sleeves. There's the other one. Here it is. So it's on both sleeves. I really think, like, literally nobody else would be bothered by this, but I can see the tensioning issues where I picked the sleeve up, and it just can't do it. I don't know why. And then on top of that, like, when I locked it, it sat on something in the tub, and it, like, sort of bleached it on the top of the shoulder, so it's, like, the color is slightly different. And I could probably fix that by dyeing the whole thing, like doing an over dye, but I don't know, it feels like a waste, right? This is a very cute sweater, and it's very nicely knit. I don't know. I didn't have a lot of opportunity to wear it, so maybe I will try again, this year when it goes off a little bit more. Or maybe I'll knit it again, because honestly, I knit. But that is my Salty Day sweater, which was knit in Superwash Merino by Lion Brand, and color Quail, which is a good soft summer color. What else? Alright, so the next sweater I knit was the Kaylunia sweater by Kirsten-Michele, which is a circle colorwork yoke jumper, sort of cropped. I did knit it in Superwash DK. I knit it in Valley Yarn Superwash DK in the color. This is my Kaylunia, which I do think there's really nothing wrong with this sweater. I think it's just that I don't love the way a circle yoke fits on me, and that was a thing I would not know until I knit a circle yoke. So I did knit this because the Kaylunia this color work is like modeled after some old Polish lace work, and as I'm half Polish, I thought that would be fun. So it's really pretty. I used some bits and pieces of yarn I had from an Advent swap from last year, and then the gray I had to buy separately because I didn't have a good K-weight yarn. So this is the Kaylunia. Really pretty, like purple and blues in the colorwork yoke. I'll put in some B-roll, or at least some pictures of how it fits. But it's just not. I'm just not sure it's my style. This walnut is really beautiful. So that was a test knit for Kirsten-Michele. I did knit this on a US 8 or 5mm needle on size 1. And I knit with the standard length, but it still feels short to me. It's like exactly waist length. It's just not quite my style, but it's such a fun sweater. So that is the Kaylunia. I do not have pictures of the other one. I knit Palm Springs tank in also Valley Yarns hunting pin in the color lemongrass. So that is a fingering weight yarn. I knitted on a US 4 or a 3.5mm needle. I did the size 1. So when I finished that, I'll show you the picture. It was a little tight across the vest. But I'm a 34-inch bust. I think I was just a smidge bigger than the pattern requirements. But I am absolutely an extra small, like from here up. the perfect way until you got to the most increases. And I knit that using with exactly 2 skeins of fingering weight yarn in this like sort of limey lemongrass green, and it turned out really beautiful. Unfortunately, I can't comfortably wear it for my own personal like comfort, but I have a friend who is slightly smaller than me and prefers her thin and negative E, so I sent it to her, and it is well loved. But the only reason I'm not a win is because I probably should have either knit a slightly larger size or a bust increases. I don't think I really realized I could need to do that yet. Again, I'm still a fairly new knitter. So my absolute wins. I have a couple of sweaters, not very many. So again, I haven't been knitting that long. So I knit the Anacortes test sweater by Nishi Fraz Knits. So I knit the size 2 in, which has also been frogged like 3 or 4 times. My knit pick. This is my gorgeous Anacortes. It's just a really fun, like, sort of waffle slash rib stitch, and it has very specific patterning, so that like the what is that called? The raglan increases have a very specific like ribbing on them, and it looks so good. The main thing with this is it's my first ever provisional, so I didn't really need to put like elastic in the neckline or something, because the cotton linen yarn just has no sort of bounce back ability. But it is really fun because it's the perfect like take to the beach and throw on in the evening sweater or wear by the bonfire. It's just very cozy without being too heavy because it's wool. It breathes very well. So this is my Anacortes. So I knit this in the size 2, and I used a US 6 or a 4mm needle. And really the only issue is my first ever provisional cast on, and I'm not entirely certain that that's something I can fix other than maybe adding elastic to the neckline, because the way the cast on is done is very specific, so that all the increases and all the weaving lines like are very specifically done in the neckline to make everything look very, very nice and very well planned. So I think about that, but other than that, like, this is a very cozy, comfy nice sweater, and I do recommend the pattern. I'm fairly certain I'm going to knit it again. Not sure in what yarn though. Okay, so my next one is the Ombre sweater. This is a pattern by Tanis Lavalee, which is Tanis Fibers, and I think it's a slightly older sweater pattern. I picked this because it went with the yarn I had. So I was looking for a pattern to knit up my neighborhood fiber co yarn from writing back from last year that was specifically for fundraising for the flood hurricane victims in North Carolina. So I bought I got 4 or 5 skeins of the studio stock in the color Blue Ridge and Valley, which is this red, yellow, white, brown color. And it is significantly more saturated than it looks like on here because I also held it with a strand of Anacortes Sedistary in the color Nougat to kind of tone it down because it was too much for me personally. I felt like I was wearing a McDonald's sweater. It was beautiful yarn. It was not my soft summer vibe. So I was like, well, I know I can't do mohair. I can't hold it with a strand of mohair because I know I won't be able to wear it. So I'm going to try a strand of Surrey lace. So I did. And as I think I'm wearing it like this, it has become one of my favorite sweaters of all time. So I did knit this in the size 34. I added about an inch to the sleeves and I added more length to the body as well. I'm not sure how much, but I basically go and measure like one of my store-bought cardigans that I always wear and measure it, make it knit the body to that length, which is like 13 inches total, to make it very cozy and like wearable over a dress, right? So I did that. It is knit on a US 8 or a 5mm needle, and the button band is, I think it's seat stitch. I can't remember the difference between seat and moss stitch, but it's one of those 2 options. And honestly, now that I've been wearing this sweater so much, I think I might knit another one, and do the button band with like ribbing or maybe a double knit instead. I do very much like this though, and I think it's a really good style for the very variegated yarn from Neighborhood Fiber Co. So this is just so soft and fluffy. It's easy to wear, and it has quickly become one of my all-time favorites. I guess your girl likes a real basic stockinette sweater with 2x2 rib. So my final win sweater of year so far is the Crail cardigan by Rebecca Clow. So this one is not out yet. I believe it will be out November, I think. So Crail cardigan is a test knit that I knit for the Caribbean. I knit this in my previously frog pattern, classic wool worsted in the color system. And I knit a size 1. So 2 caveats is that I probably either need a size 2 or I need bust increases. But this is very much my like sort of preppy girl use aesthetic. I feel like this would be really cute with a very simple sweater tank underneath, like make it like a little twin set. But I have knit this in the pattern classic wool worsted. I used a US 8 or 5mm needle. I added length to the body, again knitting to about 13 inches from the underarm, and I added some length to the sleeve to make sure that the cuffs cover my hands. So that's really all I did that was different. Oh, and I'm not sure if I can put it on the button. Here it is. So the buttons are a like sort of cheap bow pearl, and I don't know if it's my style, but it was the best I could do. To find something that actually fit this cardigan, and so this has also become a well-loved knit. I really adore the honeycomb cable. I've already bought a like more of a like beige yarn to knit a second one in very like more oversized, more cozy, slouchy style. So this one is easily going to be reknit. I have already cast on a second version of this I'm doing it in what's it called? I think it's mosaic. Maybe it's either mosaic or it's the other kind where you use two separate colors of yarn. So I'm like knitting the sleeves one color and the body a different color. I'm knitting that in red and black for my niece, and I think it will be gorgeous, but I need to find a better way to manage my yarn balls, because that's a lot of yarn balls. But that right there is my latest one. So this one being said, I will absolutely put up a little video and a little blurb when this pattern comes out and it's live. I recommend it. It was really fun to knit. I honestly don't want to put it down because the balls are so much fun, and like the little twisted cables on either side of button band and the body, and then there's this really interesting, like almost faded sort of stitch on the raglan increase, which that's the other thing. So the other thing I've realized is that I think raglans are very much my preferred sweater style. Did a couple of drop shoulders. I don't like them. I've made a couple. I knit one circular yoke and I do not like it. I think I just maybe I think this might be a drop shoulder. No, this is a raglan too. Yeah, I think I might just use your standard like raglan cardigan girl, like what fits my body the best. But yeah, so those are my year of knitting discoveries. What have you learned over your last year of knitting? Do you have any like favorite awesome winning sweater patterns that you recommend? Do you have any woes you want to bring up and tell me about? What have you learned? I'm really looking forward to the next year of knitting and learning more and more as I go along. And I hope you'll join me in learning more. So if you're interested in doing that, please like, subscribe, follow my video. I don't know, if you have a comment, I'd love to hear from you. But until then, you, my bubbas, or somewhere, I guess, we'll say goodbye and we'll see you in the next one. Happy knitting!